The Hunger Games has many badass female characters like Katniss, Prim, and even Mags, but my favorite badass female has to be Johanna Mason. With so much Hunger Games hype with the new book and movie announcement, I've been asked countless times to do a video on Johanna's life, so it's time to buckle down and get to it. There's tons of information from the books on her character that the film skipped over, especially in Mockingjay. So in this video, I'm going to explain her life based on the books, not the films. Because of the new announcement for the new book and film, I know a lot of people are reading the series for the first time, so I don't want to spoil anything, so spoiler alert. Now, let's get started. Johanna was born in District 7, and from a young age had a fire to her that made her come off as strong, intimidating, and not very approachable. District 7's industry was lumber, and with that comes a lot of physical labor. Because of this, Johanna was very strong and physically durable. She also developed incredible skill with an axe from cutting down so many trees. While in the film, she had black hair with red streaks that was shoulder length. In the books, she had short, spiky brown hair. 3 years before the events of the main Hunger Games series, Johanna was reaped for the 71st Hunger Games. While back home in District 7, Johanna was known for being very strong and very capable. She kept that a secret after being reaped. Her stylist dressed her and the other male District 7 tribute in an outfit that resembled a tree, which the stylist had been doing to every District 7 tribute for the last 4 decades. This got under Johanna's skin and led her to say that she had an unrivaled lack of intelligence. In the 71st Hunger Games, Johanna proved that she had both the bronze and the brains, but she did this by acting as though she didn't have either. She ensured that she got a low training score, giving the judges a weak performance and made them think that she had a weak defensive and offensive strategy. But in the end, her strategy turned out to be the most successful of them all. Going into the arena, every other victor thought that she wasn't a threat due to her low training score, and therefore she wasn't targeted. She stayed to herself for much of the games and didn't kill or hurt anybody. But when it was just down to the final handful of tributes, she killed every last one of them viciously. Her skills with an axe were displayed here, as she sliced and cut the remaining victors, showing her wicked ability to murder. When she was the last one standing, covered in her opponent's blood, and their bodies reduced to bloody piles of carcass, she was victorious in one of the most brutal final days of any Hunger Games. Johanna went back home and moved into District 7's Victor's Village with her family, and she was the only living female victor from District 7. Everything seemed good, but while she may have won the games, it was not the end of her suffering. Because of her fiery spirit and dominance in every word she spoke and step she took, she was extremely desirable across the entire country of Panem. President Snow realized this and seized his opportunity to take advantage of her. He visited her at her new home in Victor's Village and told her that she had to become a prostitute to benefit the capital's wealth. While he himself had no interest in her, he knew that many across the country would and would pay a lot of money to get in bed with her, especially the wealthy in the capital. Johanna, however, refused to do this and said this right to Snow's face. This did not sit well with Snow, however. Snow knew that he couldn't kill her because she was so beloved by so many men across the country, but he knew that he had to put her in her place. Instead of killing her, he slaughtered her entire family. A devastated Johanna spent the next 4 years alone in her empty house that reminded her every day of what she had lost, but more importantly, who had made her lose it. She built up so much resentment for Snow that she wanted nothing more than to see him die. Johanna was not very social. She did, however, get out and have some social time with fellow victors like Finnick Odair and Wyrus and Beatty, though she mostly just found Wyrus and Beatty odd and even nicknamed them Nuts and Volts. For 4 years, she watched the games from the comfort of her own home, and in the 74th Hunger Games, she saw something that had never happened before: 2 victors winning in 1 year. All around her, and all across the country, there was talk of Katniss and Peeta being rebellious and a figure to stand behind. Johanna, however, had no interest in this until the 75th Hunger Games were announced.
The third Quarter Quell Games, the male and female tributes are to be reaped from the existing pool of victors.
Johanna, being the only female District 7 tribute, knew that she was going in no matter what, and realized that this was her chance to get back at Snow. Johanna got her chance to get back at Snow in the capital shortly after being reaped. She was approached by the game maker, Plutarch, who was also planning to portray Snow in the capital with the help of the supposedly dead District 13 and a few other districts as well, like 3, 4, 8, 11, 12, and now with Johanna, 7. Johanna agreed to work with them and help set their plan into motion. The plan was to protect Katniss and Peeta at all costs, and all of those tributes that helped do this and lived to see the end of the plan would be broken out of the arena. Johanna, who was already friends with Finnick and Chaff, all got to talking, saying that Katniss was very pure, and therefore found it funny to mess with her. Finnick used a sugar cube to do this, Chaff kissed her, and after the parade, Johanna had her own way of making this pure girl feel uncomfortable. During the parade, Johanna was once again furious with her stylist for dressing her like a tree again. Afterwards, however, she had fun making Katniss feel uncomfortable. When she approached Katniss and Peeta, it started out okay. She began talking to Katniss about her dress and her stylist Cinna, saying that she looked fantastic. She then went on to say that she wished she could have reached through the TV during the victory tour and tear the dress right off of her for herself. But the best part of this for Johanna was when she proceeded to unzip her costume and kick it away, now totally naked except for her forest green slippers. As they went up the elevator, she acted as though nothing was different and spent the whole ride to the 7th floor chatting to Peeta about his paintings while the light of his still glowing costume reflected on her bare chest. When it came time for training, Johanna once again got naked and oiled her skin to prepare for a wrestling lesson. Later on, when they were about to do the interviews, Johanna stopped to straighten Katniss's pearl necklace and said,
"Make him pay for it."
When it was Johanna's turn to go up on stage, she asked if something could be done about the situation, saying that all of these victors had already gone through this torture, and it made the Capitol even more attached to this year's tributes, something that Snow did not anticipate. Although, I might actually like the film's version of Johanna going on stage more.
Well, you know what? That! Everybody that had anything to do with it!
Alright then.
After Peeta told the crowd that Katniss was pregnant, all of the tributes held hands, and it was the first public show of unity among the districts since the Dark Days. They quickly turned the lights out and made the screens go black, but not before everyone had already seen the tributes' unity. They kept the lights out, forcing the tributes to stumble back to the training center. Johanna and Finnick tried to go on the elevator with Katniss and Peeta, but they were blocked by peacekeepers, not wanting the 4 of them to be seen together, as it would be another display of unity between 3 different districts, 4, 7, and 12. A little bit before going into the arena, Johanna talked to Haymitch, who was the ringleader for District 12's part in the rebellion, and he told Johanna to bring nuts and bolts to Katniss, and only then would Katniss accept her as an ally. When the game started, Johanna and fellow District 7 tribute Blight were able to get some axes from the cornucopia and escape into the jungle. They fended for themselves for days, and searched for Wyrus and Beetee, and eventually they came across them. Knowing that the only way to befriend Katniss was to ensure their safety, Johanna and Blight did just that. Beetee had taken a knife to the back at the cornucopia, so he was a big burden to them. When the 4 of them were incredibly thirsty, they got excited when they saw lightning, thinking that rain was coming. But when it came down, it turned out to be thick, hot blood. She, Blight, Wyrus, and Beetee tried to fight through it, but they couldn't see and couldn't speak without getting a mouthful full of blood. They staggered around, desperate to get out of it. As they were doing this, Johanna watched as Blight hit the force field. He went flying back and was unresponsive. With the blood pouring down, there was nothing she could do to revive him. As they heard the cannon, they finally escaped the blood pouring down and made it to the beach. They were in bad shape, all 3 of them covered head to foot in blood. Beetee was being dragged by Johanna, and Wyrus was wandering around in loopy circles as if deranged. To Johanna's relief, she heard her name be called out by a fellow rebel and friend.
Johanna!
Finnick!
She told them what had happened to Blight. When Finnick said that he was sorry, she responded saying,
He wasn't much, but he was from home.
When Wyrus ran into Johanna, Johanna pushed her to the ground and told her to stay down. Katniss snapped back, saying to lay off of her, which infuriated Johanna. She stepped toward Katniss and slapped her in the face so hard that Katniss saw stars. Johanna then screamed at Katniss saying, "Who do you think got them out of that bleeding jungle for you?" Before she was able to continue though, Finnick picked her up and tossed her writhing body over his shoulder and carried her into the water to clean the blood off of her. While Finnick did this, however, she still managed to scream many insulting things at Katniss. Once they were all cleaned and settled, all of them sat together and told stories of what had happened to them in the games, though Finnick skipped the part about Mags dying. When day turned to night, Johanna refused to lie down to get rest, and she and Katniss stayed up to keep watch. They sat in silence on the beach, and when Johanna was sure that Finnick was asleep, she asked Katniss how they lost Mags. When Katniss told her that Mags gave her life to save them, Johanna said accusingly that Mags was Finnick's mentor and half of his family. When Katniss asked what she was doing with nuts and bolts, Johanna said, "I told you, I got them for you. And she explained what Haymitch had told her. When Katniss thanked her, Johanna gave her a look filled with loathing, as if she was the biggest drag possible. When Wiress woke up, Johanna got even more annoyed and said that she was going to sleep, and that Katniss and Nuts could keep watch now. When Katniss discovered what Nuts meant, when she repeatedly said tick-tock, she shook Johanna, Finnick, and Peeta awake and told them her theory that the arena was a clock, and everyone but Johanna was convinced, who was naturally opposed to anything that Katniss said. Later on, Johanna mentioned how worthless the wire Beetee risked his life to get at the cornucopia was, and Peeta responded saying that he used the rope to win his games by setting up an electrical trap. Katniss then questioned her, saying that she should have figured that out since she was the one that nicknamed him Volts. Johanna narrowed her eyes dangerously and fired back, saying that it was stupid of her to forget that, and that maybe the reason she forgot was because she was distracted keeping Katniss's little friends alive when she was off getting Mags killed. When Katniss's fingers tightened on her knife handle, Johanna told her to try it, and said that she didn't care if she was pregnant, she would still rip her throat out. And after this fight, Katniss thought to herself that it was only a matter of time before she or Johanna offed the other. When they all went to the cornucopia to see if the clock theory was correct, they all got more weapons and supplies, and Johanna got a heavy axe, the weapon that she was so good at using thanks to all the lumber work she had done back home. When a group of careers approached them and killed Wiress, Johanna reacted and threw her axe into the chest of one career named Kashmir, while Katniss killed Wiress's killer, Gloss. After they scared off the remaining career tributes, they eventually made their way back to the jungle, and Johanna took the lead, telling the others what to do to execute Beetee's plan of using the wire to electrocute the remaining tributes. When they heard Jabberjay screaming for help and Katniss's sister's voice and Finnick's girlfriend's voice, Johanna told Katniss that it could not have been the real Prim because the entire country of Panem adores her and that hurting her would lead to an uprising. Katniss was shocked at how easily Johanna spoke of an uprising out loud, knowing that they were being watched, and she was forced to give Johanna respect for her bravery.
What? It can't hurt me. There's no one left that I love.
When night fell, they put their plan into action, and while Beetee, Finnick, and Peeta went to the lightning tree, Johanna and Katniss went to the beach while unraveling the wire. While they were doing this, however, the wire was cut. Johanna, knowing that danger was coming, knocked Katniss out, and when Katniss came to, Johanna was sitting on top of her. She stabbed Katniss in the forearm, took out the tracking device that the game makers had put in her, and rubbed the blood from her arm all over her body, and ordered Katniss to stay down. Johanna's actions saved Katniss's life, because when Brutus and Enobaria saw her covered in blood, they decided that she was as good as dead, and there was no reason to finish her off. While Katniss and Finnick were rescued from the arena by the rebels and District 13 as planned, Johanna, along with Peeta and Enobaria, were not. Meanwhile in the capital, Johanna was tortured brutally. They soaked her in water and tortured her with electroshocks, shaved her head to ensure that her hair would not absorb the electricity, and covered her whole body in wounds from head to foot. They tortured her both mentally and physically in the most excruciating ways, and even though she had a lot of rebel information, she did not reveal any of it to the capital. She shared a joining cell with Peeta, and the entire time that they were there, they were forced to hear each other's screams of agony as they were being tortured. She was eventually rescued by a team sent from District 13, and she along with Peeta and Annie joined the others at District 13. When she returned, she looked very ill, was unconscious, and still had her shaved head. She spent many months in the District 13 hospital, and there she developed an addiction to the pain medication Morphling. When the doctors realized how bad her addiction was, however, they cut her supply back, afraid that she would turn into the tributes known as the Morphlings from District 6. Johanna also refused to shower, as it gave her crippling PTSD, reminding her of her torturing where they soaked her in water before electrocuting her. One day after Katniss was shot, she joined Johanna in the hospital. Johanna was so desperate for more drugs that she took it from the unconscious Katniss when no one was looking. When Katniss finally awoke, Johanna took a seat on her bed, which hurt Katniss, and Johanna smiled at her pain. The pain of the person that landed her in the capital and put her through so much torture and suffering. Johanna then proceeded to take Katniss's Morphling drip like a pro and plugged it into her own as she had been doing for the last few days, desperate to get more of the drugs that she was so addicted to. As she was getting Katniss's medicine, she went on a jealous rant about how everyone's job was to protect Katniss and that they would give her whatever she needed. When Katniss asked if that was why she hated her, Johanna admitted to this, saying that jealousy was part of it, but also said that Katniss was hard to swallow with her tacky romantic drama and her defender of the helpless act. She then went on to say that it's even more unbearable because it wasn't an act, and finished by looking at Katniss, saying to please feel free to take this personally. Katniss responded saying that she should have been the Mockingjay because no one would have had to feed her lines. Johanna responded saying that that was true, but that no one liked her. Katniss reminded her that they trusted her enough to protect and get her out of the games, and said that they were all afraid of her. Johanna finished by saying that she was feared in District 13, but in the capital, Katniss was the one that they now feared. When Gale walked in, Johanna laughed and nudged Gale's leg with her hip, calling him gorgeous, and laughed all the way down the hallway. As time went on, Johanna was forced to go through therapy and see a head doctor, which she resented. She and Katniss continued to room together in the hospital, and every day, Johanna took Katniss's morphling, which Katniss resented, but she allowed her to do it anyway. At Finnick and Annie's wedding, Johanna pinched Katniss's elbow and gave her a dirty look, asking if she was going to miss the chance to let Snow see her dancing and having fun for this propo. This inspired Katniss to dance with her sister, smiling and laughing for an angry Snow to see, something that couldn't have made Johanna happier, knowing that the man that killed her family would be furious when he saw this. When it was announced that they were going on a mission to the capital, both Johanna and Katniss wanted to join, and this shifted their relationship in a better direction. Despite the fact that Johanna was going through terrible withdrawal from not having morphling, and Katniss was forced to have painful injections to ensure that she was healthy in time for the mission, the two spent the next few weeks training very hard. When they were learning to assemble guns, Johanna could not hold her hand steady long enough to fit the parts together due to her withdrawal, and when the trainer's back was turned, Katniss did it for her. The two pushed each other to push past their limits to get into shape faster, and the two actually grew close while doing so. One day they both helped each other very much, first Johanna forcing Katniss to go to training when she did not think that she could do it, but when Johanna reminded her that they were victors and they could survive anything that was thrown at them, it made Katniss go. Later on, however, they discovered that it was raining, and Johanna's face turned ashen, and she seemed to have stopped breathing, being reminded of the torture she endured with the water and the electricity. Katniss, however, convinced her to go for it, and they continued their training in the rain. When Johanna demanded to be released from the hospital, the doctors had put 2 and 2 together about the morphling and said that she wasn't allowed to live alone. Katniss stepped forward, however, and said that she would room with her. When the two were moved into their new room, Johanna accidentally opened Katniss's drawer full of all of her possessions, and though there weren't many, it reminded Johanna that she did not have any possessions of her own besides her government-issued clothes. It made Johanna very upset and sad, and made her feel alone. And Katniss, realizing this, allowed Johanna to look through her stuff. When she found the pearl that Peeta gave her, Johanna recognized it, and they discussed how the brainwashed Peeta was doing better, but Katniss said that he had changed. Johanna responded, saying that so would Katniss, and so would she, and Finnick, and Haymitch, and Beetee, and especially Annie. She said, "The arena messed us all up pretty good, don't you think?" Johanna finished the conversation, saying that that was the one thing her head doctor might be right about, that there's no going back, so they might as well get on with things. Before they went to bed, Johanna jokingly asked if she wasn't afraid that she was going to kill her, and Katniss responded, saying that she could take her, and the two laughed together before going to sleep. By the end of her training, Johanna was able to assemble the rifle on her own, and when their trainer gave her and Katniss an approving nod, Johanna jokingly said that winning the games was easier than this training. Both girls were very pleased with themselves by the end of it. One night in the dining hall, Johanna was happy to see Peeta out and about, though he was under very heavy watch and had to ask before he could sit with anyone. Johanna said that he could sit with her, Finnick, Katniss, Gale, and Annie, and she told the guards that they're old friends and went to a darker side, saying that they had joining cells in the capital, so they were very familiar with each other's screams. This made Finnick look at her angrily as to not talk about that kind of stuff in front of Annie, but Johanna responded with a smile on her face, saying that her head doctor said she shouldn't censor her thoughts and that it was part of her therapy. During the meal, Johanna avoided an awkward moment for the entire group by distracting Peeta after he asked if Katniss and Gale were still a couple. After spending weeks training very hard for the mission, Johanna was tested to see if she was ready to go. Unfortunately, Johanna's challenge was to survive a course flooded with water, a gruesome reminder to the water torture that she had endured in the capital. Instead of continuing to work her way through it, she cowered from the water and began to scream. Boggs, the leader of the mission, realized that Johanna had experienced too much trauma to be an asset to the team, and he cut her from the mission. She was immediately visited by a worried Finnick, who was there to comfort her and make her feel better about missing the mission and the trauma that the obstacle course had put her through. Later, she got a visit from Katniss, who noted that Johanna was stripped of her ferocity and her abrasive attitude, and all that was left was a slight young woman fighting to keep her eyes open against the power of the drugs, terrified of what sleep would bring. Katniss brought her an apple-sized bundle of pine needles tied tightly with a length of vine, and when she gave it to Johanna, Johanna smelled it and said that it smelled like home in District 7, where they were always surrounded by trees, being in the lumber industry. Katniss told her it was something that she could put in her drawer, the drawer that had no personal belongings, and that Johanna longed to be full. The gift made tears flood Johanna's eyes. Katniss reminded her of when they first met, when she was dressed as a tree, but Johanna cut her off, grabbing her wrist. She told Katniss that she had to kill him. Johanna made her swear on her family's life that she would kill Snow for the both of them. Katniss agreed, and before leaving, joked with her, which made Johanna smile. As the others went on the mission, Johanna was forced to stay back at District 13, but the gift that Katniss had given her meant a lot, and helped her get through that time of not knowing what would happen to her friends. After the mission, she was heartbroken to hear that Finnick had lost his life. She was very happy to hear, however, that Snow, the man that took everything from her, was captured and locked up and was to be executed very soon. Alma Coyne, the president of District 13, took charge after that and held a meeting with the last surviving Hunger Games participants. Johanna was not happy to see Enobaria there and said that she would kill her even if she was protected by the deal that Katniss made with Coyne. During the meeting, Coyne suggested to punish the Capitol by forcing their children to compete in one final Hunger Games, and she left it up to a vote for all those present. Immediately, Johanna voted in favor of this idea, pointing out that Snow had a granddaughter, and agreed with Enobaria that it would give the Capitol a taste of their own medicine, and ultimately, the majority of the room agreed to it. Everything changed, however, when Katniss killed Coyne instead of Snow. This made Johanna very angry, as Katniss had broken the promise that she had made to her to kill Snow. Even so, Johanna watched Snow die as the crowd rushed him, brutally beating him for all the treacherous acts that he committed. In Johanna's eyes, he got what he deserved. Johanna never got a chance to come face to face with Katniss again to tell her how mad and disappointed she was that she broke her promise, not killing Snow. Johanna went back to District 7, where she lived the rest of her life. Johanna lost her family, all of her friends, especially Finnick and later Katniss, who she felt betrayed her, was addicted to morphling, and spent most of her life terrified of water due to the awful torturing she endured. She might be the worst off of any character in this series, never able to form new relationships because of the scars of her past, and she lived the rest of her life as a very sad, lonely, and broken woman. Thanks so much for watching, guys. You can follow me on social media. Links for that will be in the description. And I want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons listed below. If you want to be listed on my next video, plus a bunch of other rewards, check out my Patreon, which is linked down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you press that subscribe button to help grow the channel. Again, thank you so much for watching, and look out for more great videos on the way.